Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you had enough to eat and everything. We're going to get started on the economic development and small business in just 1 second. I have a couple of individuals here who have a very special topic that they would like to bring up, and it is very, very important, not only to this region, but to all the region. So, Jim, if you'd like to take the microphone over here to these ladies.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Patty DeVost, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the human condition when these types of incidents happen. I own a behavioral health organization called Patty's Place Concierge Youth Mental Health Care, and I'm located in Cape Coral. And our mission basically, we're 2 years old, is to help people have access to timely care when they're having issues. So we cater to youth and families, 8 to 26-year-olds. During Ian, I had personal loss, and I was right in the midst of building the business, and luckily that was unharmed. And to keep my mind busy and to be of help, I thought, I'll offer services to people, in the community as they need it, because it was apparent that everyone was going through a hard time. But what I quickly realized, and should have known, had I not been naive, was that people aren't going to prioritize their mental health sometimes initially. They're not going to get in a car and drive and make an appointment because they're worried about where they're going to live and where they're going to get a meal, and they're really stressed out. So kids often, have to kind of fare to themselves because parents are dealing with all the aftermath. I certainly felt like that in my own situation, and I just think we need to look at that and be more coordinated, especially locally. So my project idea was a mobile unit that could respond to incidences with behavioral care people and can go to them. And it can also work kind of, pre-storm for those who've been through it prior, who are nervous about the storm, impending. And then we have a lot of those folks. And then also during the storm, if it's safe, to respond to people who, need to have de-escalation of symptoms. And then also post-storm, obviously, to help them, meet them where they're at and get them what they need. So I thought that was just something that could easily be put together, a vehicle that can respond and a team that can coordinate. And the impacts on that are great to any community because it's going to affect workforce and beyond when people are able to manage their own emotions about these types of things. And I just wanted to let Andriana talk to you. She had a great idea. She's interning. Well, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Did you fill out a project summary?
Yes.
Okay, and you submitted it?
Yes.
Okay. Because the Regional Planning Council will, once we know what the projects are, what people are interested, we'll go through all the federal grants, we'll go through state grants, we'll go to private foundations, and we'll keep looking. We might not find it right away, not tomorrow or next week, but it's on our list, and we will continue to look for funding for these things.
Hello, my name's Andriana, and I'm currently an intern under Patty with FGCU, graduating in May to get my master's degree in social work. And I've had the opportunity to work through the hurricanes as well, in disaster response, such as food service, food banking, and I've seen firsthand the effects it has, in addition to in the hospital setting, especially with children. A disaster is considered an adverse childhood experience. It has a lot of long-term effects on children and families as a whole. So an idea that I had, inspired by the LA wildfires that recently occurred, that community has a committee slash kind of group of mental health professionals, individuals who provide services to families, who provide pro bono services during these times. So I do think that it would be beneficial for our community, Southwest Florida as a whole, to have some type of committee or group of individuals prepared for these times to provide those services, not just for the immediate, as Patty mentioned, but for long term. I'm sure a lot of you have lost people from disasters, have lost houses, have lost meaningful items, and that leaves a long-term effect. It's a form of grief, and it's very real. So providing these services is essential, especially when looking for the future workforce, the future generations, and how much mental health, resiliency, and well-being is prioritized.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can I just ask a question, Margaret? Yeah, I appreciate you folks bringing up the behavioral health concerns. Just wanted to shout out to Paul Myers. Paul, are you still on the line? Did you hear the discussion earlier about the need potentially for a mobile unit which would provide assistance to people going through mental health crisis actually before and during the hurricane or disaster?
Yes, I did. Thank you. So just a quick reminder, I'm with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, part of the disaster recovery team. So a couple of our mission areas, one of them is behavioral health, and then we also touched on working with children. So we're working really closely with the Florida Division of Emergency Management. They take the lead in the state on anything to do with coordinating behavioral health issues, and then we work really closely with the Florida Department of Children and Families. We actually had a meeting earlier today, which is why I had to drop off this conversation. But yeah, those are great ideas. What I would say is, if there's any requests or you just like to learn more, I'm going to put my email address, paul.myers@hhs.gov, in the chat. I'd encourage you to email me. Here's the thing, I'll forward the information on to Florida Division of Emergency Management. I have to be real careful on not overstepping or overreaching when it comes to providing support to local groups or counties. But having said all that, I can help make sure that things don't slip through the cracks or gaps. And then I am aware of, I guess we call them best practices or lessons learned from other states that I've supported. So for example, I previously supported New Mexico. They had their own crisis counseling units, and we did create a white paper on how to identify funding sources for those, whether it's through CMS at HHS or grants or through the state. So yeah, these are all things that are on our radar. We're meeting regularly with the state. And I'd encourage you just to email me with some of your observations. I'll pass those on to the state, and we'll try and work towards getting a solution. So I'll pause there if there's any additional questions.
Thanks, Paul. And ma'am, you raise an interesting point. I'll show you a project which is sort of not analogous to what you're doing, but after Hurricane Irma hit the state of Florida, all 67 counties were in the disaster declaration. SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, came to us, and they needed to build a mobile assistance center, essentially. And so we actually procured, through our funding, one of their MACs, as it's called. And one of the MACs that's floating around now was financed by EDA. Now, we don't do mental health, so we can't do a project like that, but that's a good example of maybe federal or state agency looking at the example that we did, because of course, the mobile assistance centers are there to provide immediate assistance to businesses impacted by the storm, and there's something like this that you're talking about could be duplicated under some other funding source. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you.
I just want to say one more thing too. We have a wonderful mobile crisis team. I just wanted to say one more thing. In our area in Lee County, we have a wonderful mobile crisis team called CPE. But obviously in times like this, you need more people to be deployed. So it's just, if agencies are already existing like mine and can help out in that effort, it's not recreating the wheel, it's just adding more services.
Thank you.
just add real quick, agencies like yours for sure, forming task force to get an idea of what it is you want to accomplish, what you need, would certainly at least crystallize some of the thoughts that you have, and the ask becomes a little more clear than before.
Okay. Now, as far as I know, these were the only two ladies who wanted to speak on this subject, but is there anyone else in the room who wanted to add anything?
Just that in the small business, just real quick, on behalf of some of the residents in Sunnyvale, they have been having a lot of challenges getting some of the residents in. And speaking on behalf of the group Calusa Sierra Club and some members of our group that are residents of Sunnyvale that couldn't be here today. But local businesses, even local governments, they're having a lot of issues when it comes to getting loans for their businesses that has been destroyed. So bad is the case that they're ending going to private loans to get their business started because it takes so long and it's such a complex issue. Another thing, this is more from the community residents that I have here. Like we all know, and it has been mentioned before, there's a lot of bureaucracy. The word on the street of what the community says is that they do have, FEMA does have boots on the grounds, but they don't have brains in the grounds. Meaning, they have people there, but they cannot do anything of what the residents need or provide any of the services they need. So that's another issue. Some of the recommendations our members, residents putting here will be simplify the application and appeal process for both businesses and individuals seeking relief from SBA and FEMA, ensuring funds that are disbursed quickly and fewer bureaucratic hurdles to avoid loan delays in recovery, provide clear guidance and support through the entire recovery process. And this we go back to the people that we have in the ground. We needed to have better information and guide people with actionable steps, not just, we cannot do nothing for you. This goes also for local governments and smaller communities and business owners. Also, they're recommending here implementing a more collaborative approach between federal agencies, states, and local agencies to ensure that the recovery it's well addressed. And that's another observation I have. I noticed that many of the agencies work in silos. They need to be a more comprehensive communication into what everybody's doing when it comes to response and recovery. And that's about it.
Thank you. Okay, let's start at the far table. We're on economic development and small business. Any comments, any projects? Oops, okay.
Well, I Rick again from Punta Gorda. So during Milton and Helene, both of them, we saw quite a bit of water in storm surge come through this center of downtown. We do own a parking garage down there called Herald Court. And with that, within that court is a bunch of businesses that we have. And our dry flood proofing did not work the way it is advertised on the second iteration during Milton. So I did notice Tiger Dams was one of the things that you had for one of the cities. Is that an approach that we can take for some of our businesses in the downtown area? They all, not they all, but there was a lot of interest in Tiger Dams within the city. I mean, we had other businesses outside of Herald Court that were interested in that. And what's the intersection? What's the nexus? How do we get to doing Tiger Dams for dry flood proofing during the next surge event? And then who owns it?
Yeah, good question.
Seems like the city would put in for it, but it definitely keeps, or it drives the recovery on the back end. If they're dry, they can go back to work.
Well, okay, so,
Yep, here you go.
Was it Jim? Oh, Rick, sorry, Rick. Yeah, so for us, So there's a couple things there. Yes, we could potentially look at something like that, but the question is going to be for us, when we did the Tiger Dam project for the Marina Isle facility for the city of Sanford, Marina Isle is owned by the city of Sanford, right? So the Tiger Dam is supporting the public access to the peninsula, okay? So the first question we would have is, who is going to be the applicant? If the applicant's a business, we can't do that, okay? So first off, it has to be an eligible applicant. So it would have to be a city-sponsored project. Now, that would mean that you would have to own that Tiger Dam, you'd have to deploy it, and you'd have to maintain it. The larger question for us is, is that Tiger Dam eventually going to be ceded over to the private sector? And we obviously can't, that can't happen. So there are just some larger questions there to unpack, but it is certainly potential. We'd certainly be looking at, if the question was major commercial, corridors, industrial parks, things like that, that's probably more in terms of our mainstay. But again, if you can make the argument that, this is a main economic engine for the city, then you may have something. But again, you're going to have to put that in as I would suggest to put it in as a project, and we can certainly have an offline discussion about that, because there's just a lot of things to unpack.
Yeah, it's a city-owned
Right.
parking garage,
Right.
critical infrastructure. We lease out the bottom floor.
Right. Okay. So it's a city-owned, so you'd be protecting that city-owned structure, which you lease out to the business community then, right? Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, I would recommend that you put it in, Rick, and appreciate. Did I get your card, by the way? I think I did. Okay, I did have. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yep, and to tag along, since we're on economic development and small business, you'd broach the subject on communication, and then how are people hearing about this stuff. We would highly recommend, obviously most are going to be plugged into their Emergency Operations Command website, and that's going to be more your real-time stuff. But for the business resiliency, I touched on this just a little bit earlier, but being plugged in with your EDOs, our newsletters or communications will be going out. Small Business Development Center, any of them should be on their, at least the mailing list, whether they're utilizing the services or not, because they will help facilitate the guidance to get through the paperwork of a Florida Bridge loan or a small business SBA EDIL loans or other disaster loans. So, because the business owners are great at what they do, they're not good at doing the paperwork. It's difficult. It is very, very challenging. I've been there many moons ago. So those are just a couple avenues to make sure that everyone's plugged in with the right people to get the resources they need. And don't hesitate to pick up the phone, is what we tell them all the time. It could be some nonprofit agency sitting out here that's, we stopped at one, they had a whole bunch of fans, respirators, and all this stuff. It's like, we got a pile of this stuff. Nobody's calling. But getting the word out, it's the key, and getting plugged into the right people. That's what I say.
I'll just shed some darkness on that. When it comes to economic development, you're talking about some type of dry flood proofing. I just was on the phone for an hour and a half last night. I had to cut it off because I told the individual I have a family. But essentially, it went into a residential dry flood proofing argument. There's a lot of companies out there right now that are pushing different products in the floodplain management world. Non-traditional dry flood proofing products. And I want you to be clear on a couple things, which is counterintuitive. Number one is residential dry flood proofing is becoming an issue, but even in commercial setting, if that product fails and it was not necessarily a authorized product, you have the potential of losing any flood claim that you put in. So that's a big issue on the residential side right now. There was evidence of, as an example, a homeowner did it, and it was video of his slab imploding because the water found a way in because panels were put in the doors and windows. So when you're talking about city infrastructure, just be careful, make sure it's certified, it's permitted properly, obviously. I think the maintenance and evacuation plan are probably the biggest challenges right now when it comes to that kind of stuff. And the second part of it is I've talked to a lot of flood underwriters, and they get into an issue with where they'll pay the claim out if there's dry flood proofing measures there. So meaning you didn't deploy them, they'll still pay the claim out. So it's kind of counterintuitive. When we talk about I always look at the counter argument because I have to be the regulatory arm for FEMA when they come into the community, and they're going to be the saviors for disaster survivors is what they refer to it as. And so right now I'm sending out substantial damage letters, and I'm about to have a terrible life. I may not have a job pretty soon, but the point is that there's the fast claim payout, for example, that was referenced. There needs to be more regulatory guidance. There needs to be more regulation on that flood claim payout. There's a part of coverage in a flood policy known as ICC, or increased cost of compliance. It allows you to flood proof, relocate, elevate, or demolish or demo. And what I like to tell residential homeowners is you can't flood proof your home. You're not going to relocate it. You're not going to pick it up and put it at a safer location. So we start with FRED and we end with ED, which is elevation or demolition. And the difference between that and the flood claim payout is ICC is regulated by a building permit. They have to work with a desk adjuster, with their flood underwriter, and they have to go through the whole process and get it permitted before they get the final claim payout of up to $30,000. That's a joke, first of all, as far as money, but these fast claim payouts are one thing. But now I just recently had someone come in, they got money for their flooring, their drywall got damaged, they got money for that, their doors got damaged, they got money for that, and they came in and said, I'm only doing the floors. I said, okay, I just need the flood adjuster report. And they said, no, you can't have it. I said, okay. I'll just have to open a code case on you then, because I have to be the regulatory arm for FEMA. So that's the agreement we made when we got into bed with FEMA, and that's what all communities have done. So I would just be careful on any of these products that you're referring to. Understand that if they do a claim payout because you didn't deploy it properly, you still get the money, they're going to put you on what's called the National Violation Tracker list, and you're going to lose your CRS discount, among other things that are going to happen. So that's all I'd say, is just be cautious on the back end.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to go back to something that Mark was talking about, which is the supporting the business community. You know, we have in the past supported business continuity training, and the intended outcome there is to help to make businesses more resilient so that they understand what actions they need to do pre-disaster under blue sky conditions, so that they're not affected after the hurricane happens. We did that, city of Cocoa, the businesses, that's a historic community. Businesses were flooded out, and the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council, your partners, Margaret, over in Orlando, they put together a program, and they ran that, and that was a business continuity training program for the business owners in City of Cocoa. So there are activities that can be done and probably should be done, but I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just giving you examples of things that have been done in the past to, again, increase long-term resiliency. There's many stats, and my FEMA friends are not here, but you know, there's many stats that say you know, more than 40% of businesses will not reopen after a storm. That's a pretty sobering statistic. So what that tells me is that there needs to be more done during blue sky conditions when we don't have threatening hurricanes and systems that are going to bear down on us starting June 1st.
Let's go to this table right in front of you, right? Is there anyone who wants to speak on economic development or small businesses? Okay, let's do the one behind him. No? Okay, you guys are fast. These guys are mental health, Okay, how about in the back over here?
Am I going to have to sit down and talk? I know you have something to say.
No, I don't. Sorry to disappoint.
No one here at this table.
Oh, I do want to ask, give Jim, sorry, just wanted to ask.
Here, you can take this.
Yeah, thanks. Tahita, are you still online from SBA? Do you know if she's there, Dana? Tahita Mateen? Okay.
Just give me one sec. This is Henry from SBA. I'm online.
Hey, Henry, I think there was an earlier question about, I think, ma'am, someone was talking about SBA. I think someone asked. Yes. Yeah, could you, oh, yeah, the question was about the, let me, I don't want to.
So what the community was saying there is that they have a lot of issues when their business gets damages, so they try to go to the Small Business Administration, and it's such a long and hard process to follow that they end going to private loans to restart their businesses. So what solutions do you have for these people? What can you recommend? Because they're desperate, and that's why they're going to private loans. And if they go to private loans, what are the possibilities to get reimbursed by the small business administrations? Because they had to get their business started, and they're still having a hard time right now in Sunnyvale. So, I mean, this is an issue over there.
Let me take that in parts. So as far as the disaster loans, in an ideal situation, you would want that survivor, that business survivor, to go, obviously, to see us. When you say it's difficult, what I can tell you is we revamped a year ago our loan process. So you might be getting feedback from people previously, but it is extremely easy, set up to be self-serve. Now, that said, we, even though the disaster recovery centers that we operate jointly with, I don't know if I got disconnected. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. So what I wanted to mention is, even though the disaster recovery centers have shut down, we are still operating. You guys can hear me, I hope. We are operating business resource recovery centers in several counties, and even looking still to try to open in other counties where they might need support. And we have staff that will walk through that process. So whether it's an economic injury loan or it's physical damage, we can do that on the spot, and they don't need to make an appointment. They can just walk in. We're currently in Hillsborough, Manatee, Orange, Pinellas, and Volusia. And we might have a few more centers. So we're still available for people. If you go onto our website, you will see our hours of operation, but generally Monday through Friday. Some centers are open on the weekends, but we can physically do in the moment the application with them so that they can complete it. And the way our new system is set up, they'll be able to submit their application instantly. And if there's information that is needed, okay, because the old system would be, oh, you have to bring your tax returns in, We don't have that anymore. Most of it is automated. We're connected to many of the federal agencies, so we get tax returns for the businesses and a lot of things automatically. And the response time is much more short. But what I would say to you to recap is, we do have centers open in several counties, and we can help them. And that's what we're there for. And the people in these business recovery centers are experts. They will sit down, they understand the business concept, and they'll run through so they can complete their application in the moment. I would say to you, the hardest thing about doing an application with us in the new system is getting them validated and getting an ID set up. And it gives you an account that almost looks like, I make an analogy that it's similar to, it looks like online banking. And from there, anything that's required to complete their application, they get mail in their mailbox, and they get a message via text or in their email saying that they have mail pending to read. And again, if they have any issues or anything that's requested later on down the road, we can help them in person no appointments necessary. They can make an appointment if they want by going to our webpage, but they don't need to. They can just walk in. And we do have quite a few staff in all these different centers. And like I said, we're looking and trying to open in other communities that would still need and want us there and could support a center. Does that help you?
This is William Lang with Collier County, the SBA representative that was just speaking. I just want to be clear if there's any thresholds. So you're talking about business recovery centers. Are there, I'm assuming this is associated with the 2024 hurricane season specifically?
It's specifically for any of the Milton or Helene. So let me just clear that up, because I think maybe some people had in their mind that January 7th.
Okay.
I cut out there, but the January 7th was the original cutoff for physical damage loan applications, and economic injury goes much further out. But what we do, we have a grace period. So we're working with people right now through, there's no problem. You can still apply for a loan through at least March 9th or March 7th. And there is a possibility that that might be extended. We're working on that. But through March 7th, they can still apply. And once you've applied, you're in the process. We can help you if there's any additional information that might be requested and they don't know how to upload it. And I'm sorry, I didn't identify myself. I'm the officer in charge for Small Business Administration for all. I've been here since Leon County presidential declaration, but I'm responsible for all the declarations in Florida.
That was my next question, was the cutoff date. So March 7th, but you're working on a potential.
We're working on that with the state. Exactly. I can't promise anything, but we're in what we call our grace period. And what that simply means is through March 7th, you don't need to give a reason why you're applying. You don't need to give a reason why you're applying after the deadline, which was January 7th. That's our grace period. It's 60 days after that. So that'll take us to March 7th. If there is an extension of that, then that'll extend by 30 or 60 days more, but we can't confirm that. I know we're working jointly with the state on that right now. And again, all of our centers that I mentioned really quick, you can find the addresses and hours of operation on our webpage. They can start an application on their own if they want, or we're more than happy to assist you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
I think we have covered the economic development and small business.